Listen, I've got some tough news for you. You're not building wealth. And more importantly, you're not going to be free if your income and your lifestyle are directly tied to how much you work. Now, don't get me wrong, hard work is essential. It's the cornerstone that allowed me to build a leading brokerage and a $30 million property portfolio. But here's what most high achievers won't tell you. The harder you work for active income, the further you can drift from true wealth. Why is that? Because high income creates a false sense of security while quietly exposing two dangerous gaps. Gap number one is knowledge. You don't know what you don't know. And what you don't know about leverage, equity, and scalable structures is costing you millions. Gap number two is execution. Even if you had the blueprint, would you actually implement it? Most don't. They get stuck in perfection, fear, or complexity. If you're serious about long-term wealth and freedom, closing these two gaps are a non-negotiable because money doesn't follow effort. It follows strategy, and strategy only works when you do. Now, it might sound simple, and you might be thinking, what are you talking about, Richard? I've studied long-term wealth building. I've got an investment property, or even bought and sold a few. With all due respect, if you've already got it figured out and you're executing at the highest level, then what made you click on this video? Why are you still stuck on the financial hamster wheel, even with a high income and outward success? Because here's the truth. Many of you earning six figures have worked incredibly hard. You've honed your craft, risen through the ranks, and deserve credit for what you've built. But it's come at a cost, and a critical one. In the process of becoming exceptional at what you do, you never had the time or the focus to master what actually builds wealth. And I'm not talking about income. That's just one part of the equation. I'm talking about the strategic accumulation of assets. Assets that multiply your money while you sleep, that compound over time, that buys back your freedom and not just your next paycheck. This isn't something that they teach you in school. It's not a subject you'll find in any university lecture, and it's certainly not something your employer is going to take the time to teach you. In fact, you won't learn it by osmosis, not even if you're surrounded by people who are financially free, because real wealth creation isn't passed down casually. It's studied, it's learned deliberately, and it's executed with intention. Now, the good news is that you're not alone. Most people only know how to earn their way to wealth. They focus on the basics. Buy a home, maybe an investment property, toss it a little into shares, but here's the truth. You've spent so much time mastering your craft that you've never had the chance to leverage capital. You haven't been shown how to think like an investor, not taught how to drive wealth forward, not exposed to frameworks, strategies, or examples that show you what's really possible. So you keep doing what you know. Keep working harder, earning more. But the next level, it isn't reached by effort alone. It's reached by leverage. Now that you understand that there's a knowledge gap, a result of how hard you've worked to get where you are, let me show you something even more important: the execution gap. It's the silent barrier between knowing and doing. And it's the reason most people stay stuck, even after they finally learn what to do. The execution gap is where you know what is possible, but inaction takes hold. And to be fair, if you're earning a six-figure income, you're probably in a busy, demanding role and a career that requires much of your focus. Because you're too caught up to commit the time needed to take real action and to make the shift into becoming an investor, the execution phase becomes nearly impossible, leaving you falling short, frustrated, and stuck in the same cycle. Too busy to make money, is how I put it. I've been there myself, so I can appreciate it. There was a time in my life where I believed my career was everything, that if I just got good enough, if I just worked hard enough, it would bring me the money, the recognition, the status I thought I needed. That was the game I was playing, and for a while it made sense. But the harsh reality is that what actually made me successful was the opposite of what I believed. The moment I realized my financial success depended on the actions that I took, not just in my career, but in my investing journey, and not on my employer, was the moment that I found the path to financial freedom. Without sharing anything specific, out of respect for the privacy of my friends and clients, I know countless high-income earners who've never managed to invest in property. And the reality? People working under them, earning far less, are building wealth faster, simply because they have an effective strategy for investing in property. And this again is because you are too hyper-focused on your career and things that don't actually matter, leaving nothing in the tank for what does matter and what will shift the financial dial and let you live a better life. Now that you know exactly where the two gaps are in both knowledge and execution and why they exist in the first place, let's move on to some of the real practical steps to break the cycle. Step number 1 is take care of the lifestyle creep. The number one most common trap that I've seen that stops higher income earners from achieving financial freedom is a lifestyle creep. And by lifestyle creep, I mean specifically where your income increases, so does your spending. They call it creep because it isn't an obvious thing and it happens without you consciously knowing. You have to be mindful, aware, and intentional because there are an unlimited amount of ways to spend money in the world. So if you are not in control of your personal finances, you'll find that the world quickly finds a way to separate you from your money. This starts with paying close attention to where your money's actually going. Track it, organize it, clean up what's not necessary. It can be hard to stay on top of the small day-to-day expenses, especially if you've got a family used to a certain lifestyle. So don't start with the $4 coffees. Focus on the big levers first and work your way down consecutively. The biggest cost for most people is where they live, whether that's rent or a mortgage. So let's take a hard look. Is it worth downsizing? Could rent vesting work better for you for your long-term strategy? Could you rent out a room to increase cash flow? Or even better, could you use the equity in your current home to buy investments rather than fund lifestyle upgrades? The next biggest expense is your car. Look, now I'm in a position where I can start enjoying a few lifestyle upgrades, but for a long time I kept it modest. In fact, for our family car, we still do with our 2016 Lexus. The point is, you can get around in a second-hand Camry for under $30K. It'll run smoothly for the next decade with almost no issues. Or you could drop $100K on a brand new BMW. That'll be worth $50K or less when you go to sell it in 3 years. The next major one is eating out. Restaurants, Uber Eats, food waste. It adds up. If you're serious about tightening things up, this is one of the easiest wins. You don't need to live off canned tuna, but be strategic. Cook more at home. Reduce waste. Be aware how often you're reaching for convenience. Then there's holidays, clothes, and finally subscriptions. Spotify, Netflix, Disney, gym memberships that you don't use, you name it. All these little things quietly chip away at your financial position. And here's the kicker. There's always someone or something waiting to absorb your money if you're not intentional. And once you get a taste for the nicer things, going back feels near impossible for both you and your family. Take coffee. I love it, just like most people. But once you're used to a barista-made coffee twice a day, could you imagine going back to instant coffee? No chance. Same applies to luxury cars, business class flights, designer clothes. The moment that lifestyle gets ahead of financial freedom, you're on a slippery slope. Those who earn well and are disciplined, who master delayed gratification, they're the ones who build real wealth. But don't take it too far. There's a difference between being aware and being obsessive. You want control, not neurosis. Now, let's zoom out. You understand you've got a knowledge gap and an execution gap. You've taken the first step by getting your finances in check. So how do you actually bridge the rest? I'm not going to tell you to spend every waking hour reading books or watching finance YouTube videos. That's not realistic. In fact, it's probably the same time and focus you poured into your career that's made you successful, but also created this gap. That said, educating yourself is extremely important because without it, you're not in a position to make the best decisions for your future. And at this level, the wrong decision costs far more than the time that it takes to learn how to make the right one. Maybe that means revising over some old investing books you've read in the past, watching my videos when you can. Some of the classics I recommend are Steve McKnight's 0 to 130 Properties or Peter Span's Wealth Magic. Because you are limited for time, the goal here isn't to become an absolute expert, but to have a good understanding of the overarching concepts so you can keep your hand on the pulse of your investing strategy. Which brings me to the next step, which is about building your team. Let's be real, you're not going to have the time to do everything yourself. That's why building a team of A players is non-negotiable. It's the difference between a smooth ride and consistently hitting roadblocks in your investing journey. Now you want to be extremely intentional about this. The right team will make or break your investing strategy. Now there are 2 ways that you can go about finding them. Number 1 is referrals. Number 2 is searching for them yourself. Now, referrals are great, but unless you've already got highly experienced people around you that you can trust, it can be risky. And when you're not experienced yourself, it's hard to tell who's the real deal and who just talks a good game. So you need to know what to look for yourself. Your goal should be to build a core team, a panel of experts that you can rely on whenever you're making decisions at each stage of the process. Now, across the board, there are 4 general rules I follow when looking for the right professionals. Number 1, they've got a strong reputation. So check Google reviews, Trustpilot, or ask around. Social proof matters. Number 2, they're solution focused. They won't just help open doors for you to get to new places, but they'll help push through roadblocks when they come up. Number 3, they're growth minded. They're always focused on providing solutions rather than problems. And number 4, ideally, they're an investor themselves. They've built their own property portfolio, ideally over a long period of time. That way they can understand market cycles and not just short-term success. You want advice from someone who's walked the path, not just talked about it. When it comes to assembling your team, there are a few essential roles, and each one must be filled by individuals with a set of important qualities. Here's what to look for. Number 1, your accountant. Your accountant is the foundation of your investing strategy. They handle the numbers and they make sure that you're managing your income in the most tax-effective way, all while staying compliant within the guidelines. When choosing an accountant, here's what you want to look for. Number 1 is understand the type of clients that they work with. If they don't work with property investors, then they're probably not going to be a good fit. Number 2, what is their area of specialization, and is this a broader fit? For instance, if you're self-employed, do they specialize in self-employed clients? Beyond property investing, this is very important. Number 3, how is their business resourced? Does the accountant set organizational strategy across the team to add value to clients? Or are you going to be left with a junior accountant who's just processing tax returns and not actually adding any value? Next up is your conveyancer. This is a crucial part of the process. And just like your accountant, you need to know how to spot a good one. So here's what to look for. This role is extremely technical and often extremely time pressured. So you want somebody who is experienced under pressure. They need to have a high level of attention to detail so they can do the due diligence without compromise, even when the clock is ticking. And lastly, they need to have strong levels of communication to keep you informed through the process. The third person that you want on your team is a mortgage broker. And when it comes to choosing the right one, here's what you want to look for. Number 1, you want them to be a successful investor themselves. Number 2, you also want to look at how their business is structured. Do they have a support team? If you're not dealing directly with the key broker in that organization, what role do they play? Are they still sitting over every deal? Do they set the strategy for the organization? What sort of ongoing engagement strategy do they have to ensure that they're keeping the banks accountable for you on rates and proactively identifying opportunities? This is exactly what my team and I do at Freedom Funding. If you're serious about freeing yourself financially and living a life of both freedom and abundance for you and your family, then you're going to need a solutions-orientated team of mortgage brokers who can guide you through the entire process. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can book a free strategy call with me personally. We'll run the numbers and map out a clear, tailored plan to get you moving in the right direction. And with that being said, let's move back into it. Now look, given how full on your schedule probably is, having a buyer's agent on your side can make a massive difference, especially if you don't have the time or energy to spend your night scrolling through listings or second guessing every deal. They're not essential for everybody, but if you're serious about getting the right asset without burning yourself out, it can save you time, money, and a whole heap of stress. When choosing one though, there are a few key things to look out for. Most buyer's agents are investors themselves, which is why they ended up doing what they're doing. So you should be covered in 99% of cases on that front. But it is especially important with buyer's agents that you're using one who has the experience over a long period of time with investing. The barrier to entry in this industry is low, which means there's been a flood of new faces. That's why experience matters. You need somebody who's navigated multiple market cycles and knows how to pick assets that stand the test of time, not just catch a quick spike of growth before flatlining for the next decade. Now, let's move on to the final key professional, your property manager. Now, for some people, this might feel like an additional cost, but you'd be surprised how much weight a great property manager can take off your shoulders when you've got the right team in place. We're talking about all the day-to-day stuff. Let's be honest, it is easy to overlook if you're not across the details. Things like general maintenance, tenant communication, inspections, compliance, it adds up quickly. So when it comes to choosing a property manager, here's what you want to look out for. Far too many property management divisions are treated as an afterthought, a side project bolted onto a real estate sales agency with minimal investment, undertrained staff, and little strategic oversight. That's a massive problem, because when you're trusting somebody with a high value asset, you need to know, how is their business structured? Who's setting the vision? Is there a seasoned principal actively driving strategy? Or is this being run on autopilot by a junior property manager with zero ownership mentality, still living at home, calling an electrician for a blown light bulb? You want a team that treats your investment like their own, backed by leadership that holds high standards and drives accountability from the top down. Now, my wife Mel runs a property management business that specializes in the Sydney CBD. If you're serious about having your properties managed properly by true specialists who treat your asset with the care it deserves, and you own property in that area, I'll leave a link in the description below for you to check out the details. Now that you've identified your two biggest gaps, you've taken control of your finances, you've educated yourself, and you've built the right team with the right attributes to help you succeed, you're almost ready to start buying and begin your path to true financial freedom. But there's still one critical step missing, and without it, none of this can be properly executed. This is the piece that turns your knowledge into action, and it's this: asset selection. Now, your borrowing power and how much cash or equity you've built up plays a major role in what's possible. So the first step is to sit down with your broker and get clear on exactly how much you have access to and what kind of options that opens up for you. And if you've chosen to work with a buyer's agent, having that clarity up front makes the whole process a lot more simple. Now, while they'll help guide you through the search, it is still important that you understand the fundamentals yourself, because it makes decision making quicker and more confident. There are a lot of options out there, but to keep things simple, I'm going to focus on residential property only, because that's where I personally invested the most. When it comes to residential, you've got two main options: houses or apartments. So here are a few general tips to help point you in the right direction. For houses, opt for properties on adequately sized land, ideally with potential for future development, even if not immediately feasible. Always perform comprehensive building and pest inspections to prevent unexpected expenses and ensure you don't purchase a problematic property. For apartments, choose apartments with an internal size of at least 50 square meters internally, preferably featuring 2 bedrooms. Select low-density buildings with reasonable strata costs and avoid high-density or off-the-plan apartments. Carefully investigate hidden levies or ongoing body corporate issues. Keeping it simple and sticking to the fundamentals over the long term is what's yielded me the biggest returns. And given the fact we've just seen 2 recent rate cuts, and history shows that property prices typically rise after cuts, right now is just about the perfect time to buy. If you're serious about transforming your financial future, reclaiming your time and creating the freedom and sovereignty you deserve, all while staying focused on what you do best, then my team and I at Freedom Funding are here to help. And honestly, you couldn't be watching this video at a better time. I've left a link in the description below where you can book a free strategy call with me personally. We'll run through your goals, explore your options, and map out the smartest path forward together. And with that being said, thanks so much for watching. I truly hope that this video gave you some real practical advice and that you're feeling motivated and empowered to take the next step towards achieving your goals. As always, I'm backing you on your journey. I'll see you in the next one.